Oh, you won't believe how this whole thing started. It wasn't in front of cameras, it wasn't in some grand royal ballroom. No, darling. It began in a quiet room, tucked away, where no one was supposed to hear a word. Just familiar faces, old friends, and people who'd known each other for years. The atmosphere was soft, cozy even, until the air shifted like shattered glass. And guess who was sitting there? Serena Williams. Yes, that's Serena. Strong, unshakable, always so calm. The woman who doesn't need to raise her voice because her presence says it all. The chatter floated from one lighthearted subject to another. Laughter, easy banter, nothing out of the ordinary. But then, someone leaned in with a whisper that sliced the room in half. It wasn't about tennis. It wasn't about Hollywood fashion. It wasn't even about royal drama, at least not the kind you'd expect. No, this whisper was sharper, riskier, and oh so dangerous. It was about Meghan Markle's real age. At first, no one reacted. People brushed it off like, oh, just another silly comment. But then, the words landed in Serena's ears, and everything changed. Her face froze, her body leaned back ever so slightly, and then came the question that nobody wanted to touch. How did she have kids? And listen, this wasn't venom. This wasn't an insult. It was pure disbelief, confusion dripping from her voice. It was the kind of question that hangs in the air, silencing laughter, freezing smiles. And because it came from Serena, who's known for her grace, her discipline, her no-nonsense aura, no one dared dismiss it as simple gossip. No, her question landed like a hammer blow. And suddenly, Meghan's perfect polished timeline didn't look so perfect anymore. Now, to understand Serena's question, we've got to rewind. Back to where Meghan's story supposedly begins. According to every official biography, Meghan Markle was born in August 1981. The story is neat, tied with a ribbon. Graduated from Northwestern University in 2003 at age 22. Perfect, right? Too perfect. And that's always the problem. When a story feels too neat, it usually means something's hiding in the shadows. Because, darling, documents don't lie. And Northwestern's own archived yearbooks? They show Meghan smiling away in the back row of the University Salsa Club. Normal enough? But when researchers started digging, matching the faces standing beside her, oh, the cracks began to show. Those classmates weren't all 21 or 22. Nope, many were born in the early 1970s. Fast forward to today, those same people are in their mid-50s. And get this, records showed some of them had finished high school as early as 1988 or 1989. That's nearly a decade before Meghan supposedly graduated from Immaculate Heart High School in 1999. Yes, I hear you, but universities always have older students. True, but these weren't random older classmates who popped up once and vanished. Their names kept appearing. Alumni newsletters, club announcements, group photos, you name it. These people weren't strangers, they were her circle. So if Meghan really was 22 in 2003, why was she always surrounded by people nearly a decade older? And if the math doesn't add up here, what else isn't adding up? This is where the cracks in the fairy tale start showing. Because when your public image doesn't match the records that are supposed to prove it, it stops being gossip. It becomes a question of truth. And suddenly, Serena's haunting whisper, "How did she have kids?" starts making chilling sense. If Meghan was born earlier than claimed, that changes everything. The pregnancies, the timelines, the carefully polished photos, all of it. Because, let's be real, having kids later in life isn't impossible, but it's definitely rarer, riskier, and comes with visible struggles. Yet Meghan's pregnancies, they looked effortless. Picture perfect, smooth as silk. Too smooth, if you ask some people. And Serena, she knew that. She's been close to Meghan for years. She's seen things with her own eyes. And when she heard that whisper about Meghan's real age, her instincts kicked in. The same instincts that make her unstoppable on the tennis court. And she realized the math didn't fit. Her question wasn't an attack. It was pure instinct. And in that moment, she cracked open a door nobody wanted to peek behind. Because if Meghan's age was wrong, then what else was wrong? The pregnancies, the birth, the image of perfection. Suddenly, all of it looks staged, polished, and just a little too convenient. And that's where the real mystery begins. So picture this. Serena's question still hangs in the air. The room is frozen. No one dares to follow up, but that whisper refuses to fade. And that's where the story takes us next, right into Meghan's pregnancy. The very moment the world celebrated with glossy magazine covers and flashing cameras. On the surface, it was perfect. Too perfect. Every photo, every angle, every glowing step seemed choreographed for history books. But behind those polished images, something strange began to take shape. Literally. Because Meghan's baby bump? Oh, honey, it had a life of its own. In some photos, it sat high, perfectly round, glowing like the cover of a maternity magazine. Then, just days later, another photo would pop up. Suddenly, the bump looked lower, smaller, even shifted like it had a mind of its own. And listen, these weren't blurry paparazzi shots. These were professional photographs archived forever in royal history, and the changes weren't subtle, they were glaring. People noticed, even those who didn't want to, because the human eye, darling, knows when something looks off, and these bumps didn't stay consistent. But here's the kicker. No matter the day, no matter the outfit, no matter the event, Meghan's hands always found their way to her stomach. Always. Dozens and dozens of times. Cradling, cupping, drawing attention to the bump as if it was her crown jewel. It wasn't just instinct, it became her identity. Every photo was Meghan, the glowing mother-to-be, hands clasped around her belly like a trophy. And then came the clip, the one that still sends shivers through anyone who's seen it. The clip whispered about in hushed tones, dissected in corners of the internet, the one now infamously called the moon bump video. Meghan walked in, glowing smile, perfectly tailored dress. She moved to sit down, and for just a split second, blink and you'd miss it, the bump folded. Yes, folded. Like fabric crumpling, not like a child carried in a womb. It bent in a way that defied biology. Not shadows, not camera trickery. Real movement, wrong movement, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. The palace tried to brush it off. Oh, it's just the fabric, they said. A trick of lighting. But the footage remained. Playable, rewindable, undeniable. And suddenly the whispers weren't just whispers anymore, they were cracks. Visible cracks in the polished facade. Pair that with Serena's question, how did she have kids? And suddenly that video wasn't just odd, it was damning. But gossip doesn't always come from the cameras, does it? No, the juiciest whispers come from those just outside the spotlight. The assistants, the planners, the quiet staffers who see everything and say nothing. And when you lean in close enough, their stories start to surface. One event planner remembered Meghan backstage, heavily pregnant, or so the world believed. But instead of moving with the stiffness and discomfort every mother-to-be knows too well, Meghan glided, effortless, graceful, as if the bump wasn't a burden at all. Another insider, they confessed they never once saw Meghan's belly uncovered. Not in dressing rooms, not in fittings, always covered, always hidden beneath carefully chosen layers. Individually, these things might seem harmless, coincidences, but together, they formed a picture that was too consistent to ignore. Meghan's pregnancy wasn't just private, it was curated, controlled, choreographed like a stage production, and the whispers grew, not from tabloids this time, but from real people in real rooms, quietly murmuring the same question Serena had asked. Was it real? Or was it all an image, carefully polished and rolled out for the cameras? Then came the post-birth moment that left even medical professionals stunned. Just days after supposedly giving birth, Meghan appeared before the cameras, radiant and polished. Fitted dress hugging her frame, heels clicking confidently, her steps steady and strong. No stiffness, no tentative movements, no rawness. She glowed as if she hadn't just endured one of the most exhausting experiences of a woman's life. Doctors watching from afar whispered among themselves, medically unlikely. Some even said impossible without major intervention. But for the cameras? Oh, it was perfect. A fairy tale reborn with Harry by her side, their newborn cradled neatly in their arms. The world swooned. The headlines swooned. Medical records? Sealed. Locked away tighter than royal vaults. Staff members, the ones who would have known what really happened, were silent. Bound by contracts, by loyalty, or maybe by fear. And the palace? Untouchable. Unmoved. They didn't argue, they didn't explain, they didn't even acknowledge. They simply sat atop their walls, knowing the world would accept whatever narrative they stamped official. That's the power of the crown. When enough people repeat the story, it becomes truth, whether it is or not. And so we circle back to that quiet room, back to Serena Williams leaning back in her chair, eyes sharp, instincts firing, whispering the one question no one else dared. How did she have kids? It wasn't meant to be cruel. It wasn't meant to be scandalous. It was instinct, the raw human kind of instinct that cuts through the layers of glossy photos and rehearsed speeches. Serena had seen the pieces, she had felt the unease, and her disbelief was nothing more than recognition that something in this royal fairy tale didn't fit. And that's the tragedy of it all, because once you see it, once you feel it, you can't unsee it. Every polished statement from the palace feels heavier. Every new photo carries a shadow. Every image, every word, every memory is haunted by that whisper. Were you ever really pregnant? It's the question no palace aide can erase, no photo can cover, no PR team can silence. It hovers, untouchable, unstoppable, not out of malice, but out of hunger for truth, because truth doesn't die. It hides. It waits. And one day, when those walls finally crumble, when the people who know step forward, the world will see what Serena saw in that room. Her quiet disbelief wasn't gossip. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't spite. It was recognition. Recognition that the fairy tale, as dazzling as it looked, had cracks too deep to ignore. And until that day comes, until the truth escapes those palace walls, the story remains suspended, half told, half hidden, balanced between what we're told to believe and what our instincts scream to us. And that whisper, it lingers. It doesn't fade, it doesn't soften, it echoes over and over. How did she have kids?